Hello, I've got my printer starting and I'm getting ready to try to print something. And so what you see happening now is the printer head is going down to the build plate where I build my objects. It takes a little while to get there. Got all my little paraphernalia here of different things that I have printed up. I printed this skeleton up. It's kind of small. I want to go back and maybe print it again, get it bigger. Okay. Here's a little heart. Oops, it's almost there. Let's watch that. I think you should see there's a thin piece of plastic there. It's gonna go over and start laying the plastic. See, the arm just moves pretty much side to side, and the plate moves back and forward. And then this particular piece raises the arm up as the print gets bigger and bigger. The kind of filament I'm printing with right now is a gold color filament, and it's called PLA. There are two different kinds of filaments, PLA. Well, there are many kinds of filaments, I'm sorry, but the main ones that I like to use are PLA filament. And I have to go back and look up what PLA really means. But the PLA filament is like maybe the easiest kind of filament to use initially. There are some filaments now that have metals in them. Like brass. I think I've heard a filament with some brass in it. There's filament with wood in it, but right now I'm just using a plastic filament. And so this object is now starting to print. Let me see if I can move the camera just a little bit. Before I print on my... Okay, sorry. Before I print on the printer, I have to first set up the image of what I'm going to print on the computer, and then I put it on a small SD card and stick the SD card in the printer. And this is what the SD card looks like. It's really pretty small. I got a small one here. If you ever looked in side of some people's cell phones, they have small SD cards like this. This is what I put the information on, and then I put the information inside the printer down there. When you're printing with a 3D printer, there are lots of different things you have to make sure you have correct. So like I have some filament right there. The filament for this particular printer needs to be a specific size, and it's 1.75 millimeters, and that's a measurement that we don't use so much. Millimeters and meters we don't use as much here. We tend to use inches, but because this is a machine that's built overseas mostly, most of the 3D printers deal with meters, mostly millimeters because it's so small. I'm sorry, Mom, I'm videotaping.
Okay, you're alright.
And so in math, when we're talking about, you know, measurements and stuff like that, that type of information crosses over into the 3D world of 3D printing. Let me see what else I wanted to share with you. Something else that I really had to get into using was I had to buy myself a pair of calipers so that I could measure things, because if I wanted to make something and I wanted to be a specific size, I would have to tell the computer that, let's say I wanted it to be 11.2 milliliters. So I would have to use calipers to measure some things out. So that was one thing that I had to get into buying. Calipers. I have to use, I keep it up here, an Allen wrench to loosen and tighten things such as the height on the bed of my printer, because it has to be close to the nozzle so that as the filament comes out, it lays properly on the nozzle, on the bed. I've had a lot of fun with my 3D printer. I've even been lucky enough to find a file that showed me how to print a fidget toy, and it's all made out of plastic. There's no metal in this, and I was able to print up this fidget toy. Oftentimes when you are printing with new filament, like I had, right now I'm printing with gold, but I've had, in the past, I've had some purple filament. I've had some, it's called a red, but it looks more like a peach color filament. I've had that. And I even had this particular filament, which was a glow-in-the-dark filament. When you work with the different filaments, you kind of have to figure out at what temperature the filaments come out of the machine at the best. So one of the things that I had to figure out was how to print. This is it's called a caliber 2 or tower, and what it did was I had to figure out how to change the code so that when it first started printing, my filament was heated up to 220 degrees Celsius, and then after about maybe 10 millimeters, after about 10 millimeters, it went to 216 degrees, and it just kept cooling off and off and off as it got taller and taller. And it may be hard to see on the video. The naked eye can see it much better, but it's like really nice and shiny down at the bottom, and it gets dull at the top, because at the top where the filament was cooler, the filament stuck together, but it didn't really give a quality print. So I kind of like the way it looks down here around 208 degrees. So I try to stay around 208 degrees when I'm printing with that particular filament. Earlier I had something that did not print so well. I was lucky enough to find a really nice file. They're called STL files, and people design different things and they place them out on the internet where I could just download it and print the object. And someone was nice enough to design this piggy bank, and I downloaded this piggy bank and I printed it, and it took about 13 hours for the printer to go back and forth and to print all the different layers of this particular object to make me a piggy bank with the slot that I could even drop coins in. It's really nice. Then down at the bottom there is an opening that I can open up and take my coins out. Okay, hopefully I can splice that back. I was sorry I was interrupted. So the 3D printers are really kind of great. They are kind of a fun a fun tool that you can get into using and making things and designing things on your own. Right now, I've not made a lot of things that were very useful, but I ended up in a gym a few weeks ago, and I didn't have a whistle, and I was like, if I'm in the gym with children running around, I really need a whistle. So early in the morning, I got up and I found on this computer again, out on the internet, someone had printed up or designed a whistle. And so I grabbed the file, I fixed it so it would work on my printer, and I printed up a whistle that really works. See? So when I'm in the gym, I now have a whistle if I need to get the attention of students. So that's one thing that I've done that was really kind of helpful and useful to myself. I wanted to hook some stuff up on a rack that I had. So I printed myself some hooks. They're nice little hooks. I love them. I use them every day to hook the stuff up. So I just stick my stuff on it and I hook this on the edge of my little cart. So I've printed up some hooks. Let me see. I've also printed up, but I don't have any here. I've printed up, oh yes I do. Oops. Sorry for the bump. I make jewelry, and that's what I'm printing right now. I'm printing up an earring stand so that I can display some earrings on them. I printed that up. I found a file that allowed me to print up a little clamp. So anytime I want to maybe clamp a plastic bag together. Let's see. Like if I have some chips and I need to shut the chips up, the chip bag up, I can use that clamp. And it's pretty sturdy plastic. It's pretty sturdy, so I just use it that way to clamp up some things. There are some really very talented people who have learned how to design things in the programs for that model objects for a 3D printer. It's usually called a CAD program, CAD, and I'm just starting, so I haven't been able to design anything really fancy. But this past week I was really excited that I had saw on television a young girl who was maybe about 12 years old, and she really wanted to learn how to play a violin. And when she was born, one of her arms was not completely developed. So she was born without a complete arm and a hand. And so her father had used some PVC piping, you know, the kind of pipes that we use in our house for plumbing. He had kind of fashioned something together for her so she could maybe play the violin. But then he remembered he had some friends who were engineers at a university, and he contacted them, and they designed a prosthetic arm for her that would hold the bow to a violin so that she is now able to learn how to play the violin. And they decided that since they were doing that for her, that they would also fashion a hand for her so that she could learn to ride a bicycle. And I just thought it was so wonderful that these gentlemen had come up with this wonderful prosthetic tool for her, that her parents could buy a simple 3D printer like mine and just replace her prosthetic arm as she got older, or as she needed a special arm or hand to do special activities that she really wanted to do. And I think that is the future in 3D printers. Right now, I'm just having fun creating things for myself, for for students that I run into. I sometimes print things up for students. I had some friends down in Maryland who I'm hoping are also the first to watch this video. I printed up some eagle heads because their school mascot was eagles at and I think I'll say the name, Mount Rainier Elementary School in Mount Rainier, Maryland. So I printed up these eagle heads. I've got some more eagle heads if everyone didn't get a chance to get one. So printing up things like that is made me excited. Have enjoyed doing things like that. But the real reason I originally bought a 3D printer was because, as I said, I make jewelry, and I make jewelry out of polymer clay, and it's a soft clay that I bake in a regular oven. And I wanted to be able to fashion a clay cutter that would cut the clay for different designs that I wanted to do. And so this is a cookie cutter or a clay cutter that I designed, whoops, sorry about the bump, that I designed on my computer, and then I sent it to my printer and I printed it up back when I had some purple filament. I've got to learn to make some changes to the settings so that I don't have errors, because I've got a little pimple here, a little bump. But other than that, it really came out very nice. Very, very nice. Let's see, one of the things that I normally do right now, I'm printing on a glass bed, and the piece of glass that I'm printing on just happens to have been a picture frame that fit the size of my printer. And glass seems to be one of the best surfaces for printing on. Sometimes I need to use a little bit of glue. And look, this is just regular school glue from the Dollar Tree that I bought. Sometimes I rub a little bit. If you see some of these little white cloudy spots, that is nothing but the residue of this glue when I put it on the printer, on the glass, so that the filament would stick to it. I think I've covered everything. So at this point, I'm going to say toodaloo. If you have any questions, just go on and leave me some questions down below. But I want to thank anyone who came to see my little 3D presentation. I made this presentation as a request from my sister, who is a teacher at the Mount Rainier Elementary School in Mount Rainier, Maryland. Thank you. Bye-bye.